a flawless night shattered by one fatal moment. Welcome to Cafe Echoes. I am your host, Silas Graves. Comment below with where you're listening from. Your presence truly matters. Let's revisit that evening. Captain Arthur Hastings has often accused me of seeing patterns where other men see only pleasant disorder. Perhaps he is right. Yet I swear to you, mon ami, that the tragedy at Bellamy Grange began not with the pistol shot, nor with the sudden scream, but with a napkin folded 1 millimeter out of true. It was to Bellamy Grange, that handsome country house on the outskirts of Market Wetherby, that we had been invited for what Lady Bellamy called, rather dramatically, the perfect evening. The house glittered with that particular shine which belongs to old money trying to appear effortless. Low lamps behind silk shades, and bowls of roses, and a string quartet stationed in the conservatory. Outside, February fog pressed at the windows as though curious to see what the rich did with their warmth. Lady Bellamy met us in the hall, her diamonds giving off cold sparks. She was tall, angular, and decisive, and she kissed my cheek with the air of ticking off a duty. Monsieur Poirot, you are an angel to come. Hastings, how charming. We are quite a little party. You will find it diverting. Poirot bowed. Madame, when you say diverting, I become immediately vigilant. Her laugh was too bright. Oh, do not be absurd. It is only a dinner, but I confess I have been nervous. The Bellamys are entertaining certain people who do not, how shall I put it, blend. The butler, Graves, took our coats with the solemnity of a priest receiving offerings. His eyes were pale and watchful. Poirot's gaze lingered on him a moment longer than was polite. In the drawing-room, the guests arranged themselves in clusters like pieces on a board. There was Sir Alistair Bellamy, handsome in a tired way, with a moustache that had once been rakish and now merely looked expensive. Beside the fire sat Miss Celia Harrow, Lady Bellamy's secretary, a slim girl with dark hair and a face that could have been pretty if it had ever learned to relax. She held a notebook even in leisure, as though afraid her thoughts might escape. At the window stood Dr. Lionel Faraday, the local physician, rubbing his spectacles with a handkerchief that was already clean. He spoke in soft, apologetic tones. Near him lounged Mr. Rupert Vane, and a fashionable playwright with lacquered hair and an eye that seemed always searching for applause. And on the sofa, laughing too loudly at nothing at all, was Mrs. Edwina Price, a widow who wore black as though it were a challenge. The guest of honor arrived last. Mr. Gideon Lark, the celebrated collector, swept in with a flourish, turning the room into his stage. He was a man of 50 with the vanity of 25, gold cufflinks, a carnation, and a smile that asked you to admire him before you had even learned his name. Behind him came a slim leather case, carried by Graves as carefully as if it contained a newborn child. "Ah!" cried Lady Bellamy. "Gideon, you have brought it?" "My dear Clarissa," said Lark, drawing out the vowels as if they were coins, "I would not come without my little treasure. Tonight, I unveil to you all the Bellamy star." At those words, a ripple passed through the room, admiration, envy, disbelief. I had heard of the Bellamy star, a sapphire of unusual clarity, once worn, gossip said, by an Indian prince and later lost during a scandal in Paris. Lark's voice lowered. "I have it on loan, of course. One must be discreet. But I could not resist the romance of showing it in the very house from which it takes its name." Sir Alistair's smile tightened. "Romance is expensive, Lark." Poirot stepped a little closer. "And security, monsieur?" Lark gave a careless shrug. "Graves has placed it in the cabinet in the library. Locked, and I'm hardly alone in this house, am I? Besides, what thief would dare? We are among friends." Poirot's eyes flicked, not to the case, but to the faces, to Mrs. Price's eager stare, to Dr. Faraday's quick swallow, to Mr. Vane's theatrically careless yawn, and to the tiny falter in Miss Harrow's breath at the word loan. Dinner was announced. We filed into the dining room where a long table gleamed beneath silver and crystal. The place settings were precise, except one. Poirot paused, adjusted a fork by the smallest fraction, and only then took his seat. Lady Bellamy raised her glass. To a perfect evening. We drank. The quartet played. Conversation rose and fell like a polite tide, and yet beneath it something strained, like a violin string pulled too tight. It snapped at 9:10 when the lights flickered. There was a sharp report from the direction of the library, and Graves, white as the tablecloth, staggered into the doorway. "Sir," he whispered, and his voice broke on the word. "It is Mr. Lark. He is dead." For a second, nobody moved. Then Mrs. Price gave a little moan and let her napkin slide to the floor. Folded, I noticed absurdly, with perfect symmetry. Poirot did not rise in a rush. He merely set down his wine-glass, straightened his cuffs, and murmured, very softly, "Voilà, the perfect evening indeed." For a moment, the dining room held its pose of good breeding interrupted. Lady Bellamy's glass hovered above the cloth. Sir Alister's knuckles whitened on his chair, and Mr. Vane's smile slipped as though he had forgotten his cue. Only Poirot moved with certainty. He rose, not with a rush, but with the calm of a man determined to be punctual even to disaster. "Graves," he said gently, "you will take us to the library. And if you please, no one leaves this room." Lady Bellamy bristled. "Monsieur Poirot, as this is my house." "Just so, madame," he replied, polite and immovable. "In your house a man has been killed. We must have order." Dr. Faraday pushed back his chair. As the doctor, "You will come," Poirot agreed, "and you will remember what you see." We followed the butler along the corridor, our steps muffled by thick carpets. The quartet had fallen silent. The absence of music seemed suddenly indecent. Halfway down the passage, a maid stood with a tray. "You were bringing coffee?" Poirot asked. "Yes, monsieur. Mr. Lark rang, just after 9. Poirot nodded once and moved on. Graves opened the library door with a trembling hand. A single lamp burned low, leaving the shelves in shadow. Mr. Gideon Lark lay on the rug by the writing desk, one arm flung outward, his face turned toward the books. But there was a neat, dark hole above his right ear, and beneath his head the carpet had drunk the blood until it looked almost black. Dr. Faraday dropped to his knees, felt for a pulse, then shook his head. "Dead. Instant, I should think." Sir Alister's voice came out rough. "Shot here, under my roof." Poirot walked slowly around the body, hands clasped behind his back, his eyes traveling from the wound to the angle of the feet, the crushed carnation, the faint scuff near one patent shoe. He leaned over the desk. An inkstand stood ready, the pen uncapped. A sheet of paper lay half-pulled from the blotter, one line written and then dragged into a smear. Miss Harrow read it aloud, steady only by effort. "Clarissa must—" And then it stops. Lady Bellamy's breath hissed. "Dramatic nonsense." Gideon adored making scenes. "Perhaps," said Poirot softly. "Or perhaps it begins the truth." On the far wall the glass-fronted cabinet stood open. Inside, in the velvet recess, there was only emptiness. "The Bellamy star," Mrs. Price whispered. Mr. Vane made a low sound. Murder and theft in one evening. Gideon would have admired the arrangement. Sir Alister rounded on him. "Hold your tongue." Poirot examined the cabinet lock with a delicate finger. "Not forced," he murmured. He turned to Graves. "The key?" "In the pantry drawer, monsieur. Mr. Lark gave it to me earlier." Poirot's moustache twitched. "A drawer is not a safe, but we will not blame you yet." Poirot's eyes strayed to the hearth, where ash lay disturbed, and then to the window latch, turned a notch, tested and abandoned. He said nothing, but his fingers smoothed his moustache, and I felt the grey cells at work already. Lady Bellamy recovered herself sharply. "We must send for Inspector Shaw. Graves, ring at once." "Yes, madame." "And now," Poirot said, lifting his head, "each of you will tell me where you were between 9 and 9:10. The shot was heard at 10 past. Sir Alister spoke first, stiffly. "At table. I did not leave." "Madame?" Lady Bellamy's chin rose. "At table, except that I went to the powder room just after 9. 5 past?" Poirot suggested, as though offering her a peg. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, about then." Miss Harrow said, "I remained in the dining room. When Lady Bellamy excused herself, I spoke with Mr. Vane." Vane bowed. "She discussed schedules. I endured." Mrs. Price declared too quickly, "I never moved from my chair." Doctor. Sir Faraday adjusted his spectacles. "I was at table until I stepped into the corridor for air. Only a minute." "A minute is sometimes long enough," Poirot said mildly. He looked to Graves. "And you?" "In the pantry, sir, until the bell rang for coffee." Poirot drew a slow breath. "So, someone has obtained the key or has known where it lay. Someone has had an instant alone with Mr. Lark or has persuaded him to be alone. And someone has left a room without being noticed, or has been noticed, but not remembered." He let his gaze travel over the faces, as though taking their measure. "In such a case," he said quietly, "there is grief. There is fear. And sometimes there is relief." Miss Harrow swayed. I caught her elbow. Her fingers were icy. She whispered, scarcely audible. He was going to tell her, and he was going to ruin everything. Poirot heard, of course. He did not press her. "Courage, mademoiselle," he said softly. "You will tell me what you mean, when it is safe." At that moment a door banged upstairs, once sharply, followed by a quick footfall that stopped as abruptly as it began. Poirot's head lifted. "Someone runs," he murmured, "and someone listens." Poirot was already moving before any of us had properly understood the sound. He crossed the library with a swift precision that seemed almost out of character, opened the door, and looked up the staircase as though the darkness itself might answer him. "Graves," he called softly. "No one is to go to their rooms." "Not yet." The butler's face was drawn tight. "Yes, monsieur." Lady Bellamy gathered her composure like a shawl. "This is intolerable. There are guests. There are suspects." Poirot corrected gently, "And there is a jewel worth more than many lives. We must not pretend otherwise." He ascended a few steps, listening. The house had become unnaturally quiet, as though it held its breath. Then, from the upper landing, a door creaked. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Hastings," he murmured to me, "you will remain here. Watch the library. If someone enters, you will observe." I confess I did not like being left behind, but Poirot's tone allowed no argument. He continued upward with Dr. Faraday following, hesitant as a man who knows he is stepping into something beyond medicine. Minutes passed like hours. I stood beside the dead man in the empty cabinet, staring at the velvet hollow where the Bellamy star had rested. The lamplight made the absence feel almost obscene. Miss Harrow sat rigid in a chair, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles shone. Mrs. Price dabbed at her eyes, though no tears fell. Mr. Vane wandered to the shelves, running a finger along book spines as if searching for a suitable title for the evening. Sir Alister stood with his back to the hearth, jaw clenched. Lady Bellamy stared at the smeared note on the desk as though willing it to complete itself. Then Poirot returned. His expression was unchanged, but there was something in the set of his mouth that told me his mind had fastened onto a thread. "In the guest corridor," he announced calmly, "a window stands open, not wide, but enough. And on the sill, mud. Fresh. Someone has been outside." Sir Alister exploded. "Then the thief escaped." Poirot lifted a hand. "Perhaps." Or perhaps someone wished us to believe so. Doctor, Faraday spoke quietly. There is no one outside now. Only fog. Fog is useful, Poirot agreed. It hides, it confuses. It makes the honest man doubt his eyes. Lady Bellamy's voice was sharp. Are you suggesting one of us climbed out of a window like a burglar? I suggest nothing yet, madame. I observe. A knock sounded at the front door, heavy and official. Graves went to answer, and moments later Inspector Shaw entered, a broad man with a red face and the air of a bulldog forced into evening clothes. Murder, eh? He grunted. And a missing stone, typical of my luck. Poirot bowed politely. Inspector Shaw, I'm pleased you come quickly. Shaw's eyes flicked to Poirot. Oh, it's you. They always send for you when people get dramatic. Poirot smiled. Dramatic, yes, but also logical. Shaw strode to the body, crouched. He examined the wound with a practical glance. Shot at close range. Where's the weapon? Poirot spread his hands. Not here. Of course not, Shaw muttered. He straightened, looked at the cabinet. And the sapphire is gone. That will bring the yard down on us. Sir Alister said bitterly, my house will be crawling with police by morning. It is crawling already, Poirot murmured. Shaw turned. Right. Nobody leaves. I'll have statements. Poirot stepped forward. Inspector, before you scatter everyone into separate corners, may I ask one question? Shaw sighed. Go on then, little man. Poirot's eyes were mild. Who knew that Mr. Lark carried the key to the cabinet? Lady Bellamy answered immediately. He told us at dinner. He said he gave it to Graves. Indeed. And Graves, where did you place it? In the pantry drawer, monsieur. Ah, as always. Poirot nodded. So any servant might have seen it. Graves stiffened. My staff are loyal. Poirot's voice remained gentle. Loyalty is tested by temptation, mon ami. Inspector Shaw grunted. We'll search the servants' quarters. Poirot tilted his head. And the guests' rooms also, yes? The Bellamy star is small. It may hide in a pocket, in a shoe, in a powder compact. Mrs. Price gave a thin laugh. Surely you do not think one of us? Poirot's eyes met hers. Madame, I think only that human nature is capable of many things when it believes itself unseen. Miss Harrow suddenly spoke, her voice trembling. Mr. Lark was frightened. Earlier, in the afternoon, he told me someone had threatened him. Lady Bellamy whipped around. Celia, you never said... I did not know it mattered, the girl whispered. He said the star was cursed and that someone wanted it badly enough to kill. Inspector Shaw leaned forward. Who threatened him? Miss Harrow shook her head helplessly. He would not say, only that it was someone close. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Close, yes, in a closed circle. At that moment, Graves returned, pale. Inspector, there is something else. Shaw scowled. What now? The telephone line has been cut, sir. We cannot call out. A silence fell heavier than the fog outside. Poirot's voice was very soft. Ah, then whoever acts tonight does not wish interruption. Inspector Shaw swore under his breath. So we're trapped here with a murderer. Poirot's gaze moved slowly from face to face, resting a fraction longer on each. Yes, he murmured. Trapped. And that, Inspector, is exactly what the murderer desired. Inspector Shaw's face darkened as though the very walls had offended him. Cut lines, open windows, jewels gone. This isn't some petty quarrel. This is planned. Poirot nodded. Always, Inspector. The best crimes are planned. And yet, the smallest detail betrays them. Lady Bellamy drew herself up. Then you will search the servants, the guests, the whole house. At once. Shaw waved a hand. We will. But first, everyone stays together. No wandering, no hysterics. Mrs. Price gave a brittle smile. How very comforting. Poirot turned toward Graves. Who has access to the telephone box? Graves hesitated. The corridor near the study, monsieur. Any of the household could reach it. Any of the household? Poirot repeated softly. So again, no narrowing. He moved back into the library, his eyes traveling with an almost tender attention over the room. I watched him pause at the hearth, crouch slightly, and extend his fingers toward the ash. What is it? I asked. A question, he murmured. He lifted something small and metallic, blackened at the edges. A fragment, perhaps of paperclip, perhaps of wire. Inspector Shaw snorted. Scrap. Means nothing. Poirot's eyes were mild. Scrap often means everything, Inspector, if it is in the wrong place. Lady Bellamy's voice cut in sharply. Monsieur Poirot, you speak in riddles. My husband's name is on that sapphire. Gideon Lark was murdered in our library. Are you suggesting one of us is responsible? Poirot's gaze flicked to her. Madame, I suggest only that murder is never committed by strangers alone. It is committed by motives, by passions, as by fear. Sir Alister's laugh was harsh. Motives? Gideon had enough enemies to fill a theatre. Mr. Vane brightened faintly. That is true. Gideon collected jewels and grudges with equal enthusiasm. Poirot turned. Monsieur Vane, you are a playwright. You understand performance. Tell me, was Mr. Lark performing tonight? Vane's eyes narrowed. Always. He adored the attention. He adored making people feel lesser. Poirot nodded slowly. And such a man does not die without having provoked something. Miss Harrow spoke suddenly, her voice low. He was not only a collector, he was desperate. Lady Bellamy snapped, Celia. The girl flinched, but Poirot's tone was gentle. Continue, mademoiselle. Miss Harrow swallowed. This afternoon he argued with Sir Alister in the study. I heard raised voices. Mr. Sir Lark said something about debts. Sir Alister stiffened. That is none of your business. Inspector Shaw leaned forward. Debts, eh? That's business enough. Lady Bellamy's cheeks colored. Alister has no... Sir Alister cut her off. Enough, Clarissa. Poirot watched them with the calm of a man observing chess pieces reveal their positions. And Dr. Faraday, Poirot said softly, you stepped into the corridor for air. Did you meet anyone? The doctor blinked behind his spectacles. No, only the maid with the coffee tray. Poirot nodded. And Mrs. Price, you remained seated, yes? Mrs. Price's smile was thin, like a statue. I assure you, Monsieur Poirot, I'm far too old to climb out of windows. Poirot's eyes glittered faintly. Madame, murder does not require youth, only intent. Inspector Shaw grunted. Right, we'll do a search. Graves, bring the staff. Everyone empty pockets, handbags, anything that could hide a stone. A murmur of outrage rose. Lady Bellamy's eyes flashed. This is humiliating. Shaw was unmoved. So is murder. One by one they complied. Miss Harrow's handbag held only papers and a small silver pencil. Mrs. Price produced a lace handkerchief and smelling salts. Mr. Vane had cigarette cases and theatrical disdain. Dr. Faraday's pockets contained nothing but a stethoscope and lozenges. Sir Alister's hands trembled slightly as he turned out his wallet. Poirot watched without comment, his attention sharper than Shaw's blunt inspection. Then Lady Bellamy opened her clutch. Inside lay a small velvet pouch. For a heartbeat, the room froze. Lady Bellamy stared as though she did not recognize her own possession. What is that? Inspector Shaw's hand shot out. He snatched the pouch, loosened the drawstring, and tipped the contents into his palm. A sapphire rolled out, catching lamplight like captured midnight. The Bellamy star, Shaw breathed. A sound escaped Miss Harrow, half sob, half gasp. Sir Alister's face went grey. Mr. Vane's eyes widened with delighted horror. Lady Bellamy's voice cracked. "That is impossible. I have never—" Poirot stepped forward, very quiet. "Madame, how long has that pouch been in your clutch?" I do not know. It must have been planted." Inspector Shaw's expression hardened. "Convenient." Lady Bellamy's hands clenched. "Someone is trying to frame me." Poirot's eyes never left her face. "Perhaps. Or perhaps, Madame, you picked it up without knowing. In confusion, in fear." She shook her head violently. "No, I know," Inspector Shaw snapped. "We've got the jewel. Now we need the killer." Poirot's voice was soft, almost pitying. "Inspector, to find the jewel is easy. To understand why it is in her bag, that is the true mystery." Outside, the fog pressed against the windows like a living thing, and Poirot, with his hands folded neatly before him, murmured, "The game becomes more interesting." Inspector Shaw's satisfaction was almost visible. He held the sapphire as though it were the end of the matter, not the beginning. "Well," he said grimly, "that settles one part. Lady Bellamy, you'll come with me." Lady Bellamy recoiled as though struck. "You cannot mean—" "I mean exactly what I say. The jewel was in your bag. Your husband argued with the dead man, and now we have murder and theft neatly together." Sir Alister stepped forward, voice hoarse. "Clarissa did not kill anyone." Shaw's eyes were flat. "Then explain the stone." Lady Bellamy's hands fluttered helplessly. "It must have been planted. Someone put it there while we were at dinner, while I went to the powder room." Poirot's head tilted. "Ah, the powder room." Lady Bellamy's eyes flashed. "Yes, I was alone. Anyone could have slipped it into my clutch when I returned." Poirot's tone remained mild. "Anyone, or someone who knew you would not check." Inspector Shaw snorted. "Or someone who thought she'd get away with it." Poirot turned gently. "Inspector, you are too eager for the simple solution. The jewel in the bag is a message, not an answer." "A message?" Shaw barked. "Yes," Poirot said softly. "To distract, to accuse, to force haste." Shaw's jaw tightened. "And you think she's innocent?" Poirot spread his hands. "I think only that murderers enjoy watching others run in circles." Miss Harrow suddenly spoke, her voice trembling. "Lady Bellamy, let me see your clutch." Lady Bellamy stared, then thrust it toward her. Celia's fingers moved quickly, almost automatically through the lining. She paused. "There," she whispered. She pulled at a seam near the inside edge. The stitching was slightly looser than the rest, recently disturbed. With a careful tug, she revealed a small slit, an inner compartment. Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Interesting." Miss Harrow's face was pale. "This pocket, it isn't normally open. Someone cut it." Inspector Shaw frowned. "So what?" "So," Poirot murmured, "the pouch could be slipped in without opening the bag properly. A clever hand, yes? One that knows how to conceal." Lady Bellamy's breath caught. "Then it was planted." Poirot nodded slowly. "It becomes more probable." Inspector Shaw grunted. "Or it becomes more elaborate." Poirot's gaze drifted to Graves. "Who handled Lady Bellamy's coat or bag this evening?" Graves stiffened. "No one, monsieur. Madame carried it herself." "And in the powder room?" Poirot asked. Lady Bellamy hesitated. "There is a maid. Alice." "Bring her," Shaw ordered. Graves departed. The room felt thick with suspicion, each person measuring the others with new eyes. Sir Alister spoke low to Poirot. "This is madness. Clarissa is being made a fool of." Poirot's voice was quiet. "Monsieur, fools are useful to murderers. They create noise." "And what of me?" Sir Alister demanded. "Am I also useful?" Poirot's eyes held his. "That depends what you hide." Sir Alister's face tightened, but he said nothing. When the maid Alice arrived, she was wide-eyed with terror, apron trembling in her fists. Inspector Shaw barked, "Did you go into Lady Bellamy's bag?" "No, sir, never." Poirot stepped forward, gentle. "Mademoiselle, did you see anyone enter the powder room after Lady Bellamy left?" Alice swallowed. I saw Miss Harrow go in." Miss Harrow stiffened. "I went to fetch smelling salts. Mrs. Price looked faint." Mrs. Price's eyes glittered. "How thoughtful." Poirot's gaze moved between them. "And did you see anyone else?" Alice hesitated. "Mr. Vane? He lingered in the corridor. He said he was looking for the smoking room." Vane lifted his brows. "The house is a maze. I was lost." Poirot nodded politely. "Of course," Inspector Shaw growled. "Enough. Someone slipped the jewel into the bag. Fine. But the fact remains. Gideon Lark is dead." "Who shot him?" Poirot's voice was very soft. "Yes. Who had the pistol?" A silence. Sir Alister said abruptly, "There are guns in the study cabinet." Shaw's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll check." They moved as a group into the study. The cabinet stood against the wall, its glass panel reflecting our strained faces. Sir Alister unlocked it with shaking fingers. Inside were 2 pistols. One space was empty. Inspector Shaw's satisfaction returned like a bad smell. "Well, well, missing gun. Sir Alister, where is it?" Sir Alister's voice was strained. "I don't know." Poirot leaned closer. "When did you last see it?" Sir Alister swallowed. "Weeks ago." Lady Bellamy whispered, "Alister." Poirot's eyes flicked toward her. "Madame, did you know a pistol was missing?" Her lips parted, then closed. "No." Inspector Shaw snapped. Someone took it earlier. Someone prepared." Poirot murmured, "Prepared? Yes." Then, from somewhere above, a sudden crash echoed. Glass shattering, followed by a strangled cry. Everyone froze. Poirot's head lifted, eyes bright. "Inspector," he said softly, "I believe the evening is not yet finished." And without waiting, he hurried toward the stairs as the house held its breath once more. Poirot reached the staircase first, his small figure moving with surprising speed. Inspector Shaw thundered after him, muttering curses, while the rest of us followed in a tight, fearful cluster. The crash had come from the upper floor, the guest corridor, where silence had already felt too heavy. At the landing, a door stood ajar. Light spilled out, trembling. Poirot paused only long enough to listen, then pushed it open. Inside, the room was in disarray. A chair lay overturned. The dressing table drawer pulled half out, and shards of glass glittered on the carpet beneath the broken window. The fog pressed in like a pale intruder. On the floor, near the bed, Alice the maid knelt, shaking violently. "It's Miss Harrow," she sobbed. She's hurt." Celia Harrow lay crumpled beside the hearthrug, one hand clutching her side. Blood seeped darkly through her fingers. Her face was ashen, but her eyes were open, wide with terror. Dr. Faraday pushed forward at once. "Stand back." He knelt, gently prying her hand away. "A deep cut, not a bullet wound. Sharp, deliberate." "A knife," he murmured. "Not fatal if we stop the bleeding." Inspector Shaw's face hardened. "Attempted murder now. Someone's cleaning up loose ends." Poirot crouched beside Celia, his voice soft as velvet. "Mademoiselle, can you speak?" Her lips trembled. I saw..." Poirot leaned closer. "Yes?" Her eyes flickered toward the broken window, then back. "The star. It was never meant to stay." A cough seized her. Dr. Faraday pressed cloth to the wound. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Who did this?" Celia's voice was a whisper. "A hand. In the dark. Someone who said, 'Be quiet.'" Inspector Shaw swore. "That's useless." Poirot's eyes were not on Celia now, but on the room. He moved with careful precision, examining the overturned chair, the open drawer, the broken latch. "The window was broken from inside," he murmured. Shaw snapped. "How do you know?" Poirot pointed. "The glass lies mostly inward. And see, the latch was already unfastened. Someone wished to suggest escape again. Always the same idea." Lady Bellamy's voice shook. "Someone is trying to terrify us." Poirot nodded. "Or to mislead." Dr. Faraday looked up sharply. "We must get her downstairs, somewhere warm. She's losing blood." Poirot rose. "Yes, but first, Inspector, look." He indicated the dressing table. On it lay a small object, half hidden beneath a glove. Inspector Shaw picked it up, a pearl-handled letter opener, its blade smeared red. Mrs. Price gasped. "How ghastly!" Poirot's eyes narrowed. Not a kitchen knife, something chosen in haste or in familiarity. Lady Bellamy whispered, "That belongs to me." Shaw's head snapped around. "Of course it does." Her voice rose, near hysteria. "It was in my study. Someone must have taken it." Poirot's tone remained calm. "Madame, many things in this house have been taken tonight." Inspector Shaw's patience snapped. "Enough. Lady Bellamy, are jewels in your bag? Your letter opener used to stab your secretary. How much more coincidence do you require?" Sir Alister stepped forward, furious. "Shaw, you're blind. Someone is framing her." Poirot lifted a hand gently. "Monsieur, please." Anger is also useful to murderers. Celia moaned softly. Poirot bent again. "Mademoiselle," he whispered, "you said the star was never meant to stay. What did you mean?" Her eyes fluttered. "Gideon, he was going to sell it back. To someone here. He promised." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Promised, ah." Inspector Shaw barked. "To whom?" Celia's lips moved, but no sound came. Her head lolled slightly. Dr. Faraday said sharply, "Stop. She must rest." Poirot straightened, his face grave. "Very well." They carried Celia carefully downstairs to the morning room, where she was laid on a sofa. Graves hovered like a ghost, wringing his hands. Poirot turned to Inspector Shaw. "Now you see, Inspector, the murderer is not finished. He strikes again because time presses." Shaw growled. "Or because we're all trapped." Poirot nodded. "Yes, the cut telephone line, the broken windows. These are not random, they are gestures. Theatre." Mr. Vane swallowed. "Theatre is my profession, Monsieur Poirot. I assure you I do not enjoy this production." Poirot's eyes flicked to him. "Do you not? You observe very closely." Vane's smile was strained. "Writers always observe," Poirot murmured. "Indeed." Lady Bellamy sank into a chair, trembling. "What do you want from us?" Poirot's voice was soft, almost kind. "Truth, madame, only truth." Inspector Shaw slammed his fist onto the mantel. "Right, no more wandering. And everyone stays in the drawing room under guard. Graves, lock the doors." Graves hesitated. "Lock them, sir." "Yes. If the murderer wishes us trapped, we shall trap him as well." Poirot's eyes lifted slightly. "A dangerous plan, Inspector, but perhaps necessary." As they herded the guests back together, Poirot remained behind a moment, staring at the faint smear of blood on the letter opener. He murmured to himself, so softly I barely heard, "The one who frames is often the one who fears exposure most." And in the silence of Bellamy Grange, the perfect evening grew darker still. The drawing-room, once warm with polite conversation, had become a chamber of strained breathing and shifting eyes. Inspector Shaw positioned Graves at the door like a sentry, and the servants hovered in the hall, pale and whispering. Outside, with the fog pressed against the glass, as though the world itself wished to remain ignorant. Poirot sat in an armchair, his hands folded neatly, his gaze moving from face to face with quiet patience. It was astonishing how still he could be while everyone else seemed on the edge of fracture. Inspector Shaw cleared his throat. "Right. We have one dead man, one injured woman, a stolen jewel recovered in suspicious circumstances, and a missing pistol. Somebody here is playing a very nasty game." Mrs. Price gave a thin laugh. "How perceptive." Shaw ignored her. "I want answers. Now, no more half-truths." Poirot's voice was soft. "Inspector, the half-truths are always the most dangerous. They leave room for imagination." Shaw scowled. "Then you ask. You like asking." Poirot inclined his head. "Very well." He turned first to Sir Alistair. "Monsieur, so you argued with Mr. Lark this afternoon. About debts, yes?" Sir Alistair's jaw tightened. Lark was a vulture. He offered to help me with an investment. When I refused, he hinted he might speak of certain matters. Lady Bellamy whispered, "Alistair." Poirot's eyes were steady. "Certain matters?" Sir Alistair's voice was bitter. "My finances are not as solid as Clarissa believes. Lark enjoyed reminding me." Poirot nodded gently. "So he threatened you with humiliation." Sir Alistair's hands clenched. "Yes, but I did not kill him." Poirot turned to Lady Bellamy. "Madame, Mr. Lark wrote, 'Clarissa must,' on his desk. What did he wish to tell you?" Lady Bellamy's face flushed. "I do not know. Gideon always dramatized. Perhaps he meant I must repay him or host him or—" Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. "Or perhaps, madame, he meant you must know something." She stiffened. "I know nothing except that my home has become a slaughterhouse." Poirot let the words pass. He looked to Dr. Faraday. "Doctor, you said Mr. Lark was killed instantly, at 9:10. Was there any sign of struggle?" Dr. Faraday adjusted his spectacles. "None. He was shot cleanly. He likely did not even see it coming." Poirot murmured. So the killer was either trusted or unseen. Mr. Vane leaned back with forced ease. "Or theatrical. A murderer enjoys surprise." Poirot's gaze flicked to him. "Monsieur Vane, you lingered in the corridor near the powder room. Why?" Vane spread his hands. "As I said, I was lost." Poirot's voice remained polite. "You're a man who finds his way through words for a living. Yet you lose yourself in a corridor." Vane's smile tightened. "Even playwrights misstep." Poirot nodded slowly. "Yes, sometimes deliberately." Mrs. Price's voice cut in, sharp. "This is absurd. Are we all to be interrogated like criminals while the real culprit laughs?" Poirot turned toward her. "Madame, you are a widow. You have known grief. Did you know Mr. Lark well?" Her eyes glittered. "Well enough. He once tried to buy a necklace from me. He offered insultingly little." Poirot murmured, "He insulted many people." Mrs. Price's lips curled. "That was his gift." Poirot was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "Mademoiselle Harrow said Mr. Lark was going to sell the star back to someone here." A ripple went through the room. Lady Bellamy's voice rose. "Sell it back? To whom?" Poirot's eyes were thoughtful. "That is what we must discover. The star is named for this house. Perhaps it belongs here more than anywhere." Sir Alistair's face went rigid. Poirot noticed, of course. "Monsieur," Sir Alistair said harshly, "do not look at me like that." Poirot's voice was gentle. "I look only with curiosity." Inspector Shaw snapped. "Enough dancing. The jewel was in Lady Bellamy's bag, the letter opener was hers, and the pistol is missing from Sir Alistair's cabinet. That's a neat pair of suspects." Lady Bellamy sprang up. "You cannot arrest us on coincidence." Poirot lifted a hand. "Inspector, coincidence is the mask of intention. But we must ask, who benefits from making Madame appear guilty?" A silence. Then Miss Harrow's weak voice drifted from the morning-room doorway. She had stirred, pale as paper, supported by Dr. Faraday. Poirot moved instantly. Mademoiselle, you should rest. Her eyes were fever-bright. Ah, no, I must speak. Before... Poirot's face softened. Yes, tell me. Celia swallowed painfully. Gideon, he was blackmailing someone. He said the star was only the beginning. He had letters. Proof. Lady Bellamy's breath caught. Letters? Celia nodded faintly. In his case, the leather case. Poirot's eyes sharpened like a blade. The case that Graves carried. Inspector Shaw barked, "Where is it now?" Graves stiffened. "In the library, sir, on the side table." Poirot's voice was very soft. "Then perhaps, Inspector, the true treasure was never the sapphire, but what was written on paper." Celia's lips trembled. He said, "Clarissa must pay, or he would ruin her." Lady Bellamy staggered back as though struck. Poirot's eyes held hers. "Madame, what did he mean?" Lady Bellamy's voice was barely audible. I do not know." But Poirot saw the flicker in her eyes, the smallest betrayal of fear. Inspector Shaw growled, "We're going to that library. Now, if there are letters, they may tell us everything." Poirot rose smoothly. "Yes, Inspector, and I think the murderer knows it too." As we moved toward the library once more, the air felt tight, as though the house itself waited for the next blow. We returned to the library, as though drawn back to the scene of a play none of us wished to watch again. The lamplight still burned low, casting long shadows between the shelves. Gideon Lark's body had been removed, but the dark stain on the rug remained, an ugly reminder that death does not depart politely. On the side table lay the slim leather case, closed now, its brass clasp gleaming. Inspector Shaw strode toward it at once. "Right, let's see these letters." Poirot's voice was quiet. "Carefully, Inspector. Paper burns easily." Shaw shot him a look, but flipped the clasp. The case opened with a soft click. Inside were not jewels, but documents, folded sheets, envelopes, a small notebook. Shaw rifled through them with blunt impatience. "Well?" Lady Bellamy demanded, her voice tight. Shaw pulled out an envelope, tore it open, his brow furrowed. "This is a contract." Poirot leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. "A bill of sale," he murmured, "for the Bellamy Star." Sir Alister's face went rigid. "Sale?" Poirot nodded slowly. Mr. Lark intended to sell the Star, back to its original family, perhaps, or to someone who wished it returned. Lady Bellamy's voice was sharp. "To whom?" Shaw scanned the page, then swore. "It's unsigned, but the buyer's name is initialed. C.B." A silence fell like a weight. Lady Bellamy's eyes widened. "C.B. Clarissa Bellamy." Inspector Shaw's mouth hardened. Well, that's convenient." Lady Bellamy's hands trembled. "That proves nothing. Anyone could write initials." Poirot's gaze was thoughtful. "Yes, anyone could. But why would Mr. Lark carry such a paper tonight?" Miss Harrow's weak voice drifted from the doorway, where she stood supported by Dr. Faraday. "Because he wanted her to sign," he said. He would force her. Lady Bellamy turned, fierce. "Force me? Celia, what nonsense!" Celia's eyes were dull with pain. "He said you owed him, that you could not refuse." Poirot's voice was very soft. "Owed him not only money, perhaps." Inspector Shaw rifled again, pulling out another envelope. This one was thick, sealed. He broke it open and drew out several letters. Poirot watched his face change. "What is it?" Sir Alister demanded. Shaw hesitated, then read aloud, his voice harsh. "These are personal letters, written by Lady Bellamy." Lady Bellamy gave a strangled sound. "Give me those." Poirot's hand rose gently. "Madame, please, do not." Shaw's eyes were narrow. "Letters to Gideon Lark. Intimate and recent." Lady Bellamy's composure shattered. "They are private." Sir Alister's voice was low, dangerous. "Clarissa, Lady Bellamy's lips parted, then closed. Her eyes flashed with humiliation and fury. Poirot's tone remained calm. So Mr. Lark possessed something more valuable than the sapphire. He possessed scandal. Mrs. Price's laugh was sharp as glass. Oh, how delicious! The perfect evening indeed. Lady Bellamy spun. You wicked woman! Poirot intervened softly. Madame, her anger will not help you. Inspector Shaw slapped the letters against his palm. Motive, blackmail, a quarrel, and now a dead man. It fits neatly. Poirot's eyes were steady. Too neatly. Shaw snapped, What do you mean? Poirot gestured to the case. If these letters were truly damning, Inspector, would the murderer leave them here for us to find, or would he destroy them? Shaw hesitated. Poirot continued, voice gentle. Unless the murderer wished them found. A hush. Mr. Vane's voice was light. Too light. You suggest someone is arranging the evidence like stage props? Poirot's eyes flicked to him. Stage props, yes. The jewel in the bag. The letter opener. Now these letters. Always pointing in one direction. Lady Bellamy's voice was broken. Someone wants to ruin me. Poirot nodded slowly. Yes, and perhaps ruin is more satisfying than murder. Sir Alister's hands were clenched. Clarissa, tell me the truth. Were you involved with Lark? Lady Bellamy's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. No, not as you think. He wrote first. He threatened. I answered because I was afraid of what he would do. Poirot murmured, Fear writes many letters. Inspector Shaw grunted. Fear also pulls triggers. Poirot turned suddenly toward Graves. Where is the pistol, Graves? The butler stiffened. I do not know, monsieur. Poirot's eyes were intent. And yet you carried the case. You placed the jewel in the cabinet. You know the house better than anyone. Graves' voice was strained. Are you accusing me? Poirot's tone was mild. I accuse no one, I observe. At that moment, a faint smell reached us. Sharp, acrid. Poirot's head lifted. Smoke! Inspector Shaw sniffed, then swore violently. Fire! From the corridor came a shout, a servant's cry. The study, it's burning! For one frozen second, everyone stared. Poirot's voice was very soft. Ah, now the murderer destroys what he cannot allow us to read. And as we rushed toward the smoke, the house itself seemed to erupt into chaos, the perfect evening collapsing at last into flames. The corridor was already thick with smoke when we reached the study. Servants ran with pails of water, their faces gray with panic. Flames licked greedily at the curtains inside, throwing frantic shadows across the walls. The fire had begun with astonishing speed, as though it had been waiting. Inspector Shaw shoved past Graves. Get water, smother it, or don't let it spread. Poirot stood for one brief moment at the threshold, his eyes taking in everything. The direction of the smoke, the crackling of the wood, the strange, sharp scent beneath it. Petrol, he murmured. Not an accident. Sir Alister swore under his breath. Someone set it deliberately. Poirot nodded. To destroy or to distract. Dr. Faraday coughed, pressing a handkerchief to his mouth. We must get everyone away. This smoke is dangerous. Lady Bellamy's voice was strained. My house. My father's books. Poirot turned gently. Madame, books can be replaced. Lives cannot. The servants managed, with frantic effort, to beat down the flames before they devoured the entire room. The curtains were ruined, the carpet scorched, and the air stank of burnt paper. Shaw pushed inside, boots crunching on charred debris. What was here? He demanded. Sir Alister's voice was hollow. My desk, papers, financial records. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Records, yes. Perhaps also the missing pistol? Shaw glared. You think the gun was hidden here? Poirot's voice was calm. It would be logical. and fire would remove it. Shaw knelt, sifting through the blackened remains. Nothing left but ash. Poirot crouched as well, his movements careful. His fingers closed around something half-melted, metallic. He lifted it, a twisted fragment of a pistol barrel. Inspector Shaw's face darkened. "Damnation!" Poirot's voice was very soft. "So, the weapon is destroyed." Lady Bellamy whispered. "Then we will never prove—" Poirot looked up, eyes bright. "Madame, one does not need the weapon to know the hand that held it." Sir Alister's voice was sharp. "None do you know?" Poirot did not answer directly. Instead he rose, brushing ash from his cuffs with meticulous distaste. "Inspector," he said quietly, "tell me, who discovered the fire?" Shaw frowned. "One of the maids. She screamed." Poirot nodded. "And where were we all?" "Together, yes, in the library corridor. So whoever set it must have moved quickly, unseen." Mrs. Price's laugh was brittle. "Or had an accomplice." Poirot's eyes flicked to her. "Perhaps." Mr. Vane's voice was smooth. "This is becoming quite elaborate. Murder, theft, attempted murder, arson. One wonders what the murderer truly wants." Poirot's gaze rested on him. "Monsieur Vane, you understand drama. In drama, the villain wants not only to win, but to be admired." Vane's smile faltered. "I assure you, I admire nothing tonight." Poirot murmured, "And we shall see." They returned, shaken, to the drawing-room. The air felt heavier now, charged with exhaustion and dread. Celia Harrow lay pale on the sofa, drifting in and out of consciousness. Dr. Faraday remained beside her, vigilant. Inspector Shaw slammed the door. "Right, enough. We end this tonight. Nobody sleeps until I have answers." Poirot's voice was gentle. "Inspector, fatigue makes liars careless. Perhaps that is useful." Shaw scowled. "Then speak, Poirot. You've been watching like a cat. What do you see?" Poirot folded his hands. "I see a murderer who frames Lady Bellamy with jewel and blade. I see letters meant to shame her. I see fire meant to destroy evidence. Always the same direction." Lady Bellamy's voice trembled. "Someone wants me ruined." Poirot nodded. "Yes, but why?" Sir Alister spoke suddenly, harsh. "Because Clarissa holds the power here, the money, the name." Poirot's eyes flickered. "Ah, the name." Mrs. Price's eyes glittered. Perhaps Gideon Lark was not the only one with debts. Sir Alister stiffened. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Price smiled thinly. "Only that desperation lives in many pockets." Poirot's gaze moved quietly. Desperation. Yes. And fear. At that moment Celia stirred, her eyes opening wide with sudden urgency. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered. Poirot was instantly at her side. "Yes, mademoiselle." Her fingers clutched his sleeve with surprising strength. It was not Lady Bellamy. It was... Her breath hitched. Dr. Faraday leaned in. "Easy, easy." Celia's eyes darted toward the group. The one who smiled. The one who watched. Poirot's voice was soft, coaxing. "Who, mademoiselle?" Her lips trembled. "Oh, Rupert." A silence fell so deep it seemed to swallow the room. Mr. Vane's face froze, his theatrical mask slipping for the first time. Poirot straightened slowly, his eyes never leaving Vane. Inspector Shaw's voice was harsh. "Rupert Vane, what the devil?" Vane lifted his hands with a laugh too quick. "This is absurd. A delirious girl whispers a name and suddenly I'm a murderer." Poirot's voice was quiet, almost pitying. "Monsieur Vane, you have been acting all evening. But now, perhaps, the curtain begins to fall." And in that charged silence, everyone understood. The final gathering was approaching. The room seemed to contract around Rupert Vane, as though the very air had become accusatory. Celia Harrow's whispered name hung between us like smoke. Inspector Shaw took a step forward, his heavy face set. "Rupert Vane, he growled. "Because you'll stay exactly where you are." Vane's laugh was brittle. "Really, Inspector, you cannot arrest me on the delirium of a stabbed girl." Poirot's voice was mild. "Not arrest, monsieur. Only observe." Vane's eyes flashed. "Observe all you like. I have done nothing." Poirot tilted his head. "That is what interests me. You have done nothing, and yet you have been everywhere." Lady Bellamy's voice trembled. "Rupert, why would Celia name you?" Vane spread his hands. "Because she is frightened. Because she wishes drama. Perhaps she has read too many novels." Poirot's eyes softened briefly. "Mademoiselle Harrow has read only account books and letters of blackmail. She has little taste for drama." Inspector Shaw snapped. "Enough talk. Search him." Vane stiffened. "This is outrageous." 2 constables had not arrived. No telephone line, no outside help. So Shaw himself stepped forward, gripping Vane's arm. Vane's elegance faltered as Shaw patted his pockets, pulled out cigarette cases, a silver penknife, a silk handkerchief. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "The penknife, Inspector." Shaw held it up. "Small thing, for cigars." Poirot's voice was quiet. "Or for cutting telephone wires." Vane's smile tightened. "Absurd." Poirot continued gently. "Monsieur Vane, you are a man who writes plays. You understand misdirection. The jewel in the bag, the letter opener, the broken windows. All are scenes. But tell me, why such effort?" Vane's eyes glittered. "Perhaps the murderer is clever." Poirot nodded. "Yes, clever enough to know that the simplest motive is often the ugliest. Money." Sir Alister's voice was rough. "Vane is not poor." Poirot's eyes flicked to him. "Are you certain?" Monsieur?" Vane laughed again, sharper. "Now we accuse everyone of hidden debts?" Poirot's voice remained calm. "Mr. Lark accused everyone of hidden debts. That is why he died." Inspector Shaw leaned forward. "You knew Lark before tonight?" Vane hesitated a fraction. "In society, one knows many people." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Ah, society. And yet Mr. Lark carried letters that could ruin Lady Bellamy. He carried a contract with her initials. He carried threats. But perhaps he carried something else." He turned to Graves. "Did Mr. Lark receive any visitor after dinner?" Graves swallowed. "No one entered the library, monsieur. Not that I saw." Poirot nodded. "Not that you saw." He moved toward the mantel, where the recovered Bellamy star now lay under Shaw's guard. Poirot picked it up delicately, letting it catch the lamplight. "Ah, a beautiful stone," he murmured. "But beauty makes men foolish." Mrs. Price's voice was dry, or murderous. Poirot inclined his head. "Just so." He turned suddenly, his eyes bright. "Monsieur Vane, you were the only one who spoke lightly of murder, who found words for everything. You watched reactions, you lingered in corridors, you understood the value of scandal." Vane's face hardened. "You are weaving fantasies." Poirot's voice was soft. "No, monsieur, I am unweaving yours." Inspector Shaw barked. "Poirot, do you have proof or not?" Poirot nodded slowly. "Not proof of the gun. It burned. Not proof of the knife. It was placed. But proof of psychology? Yes." He stepped closer to Vane. "You wished the Bellamy star, but you also wished Lady Bellamy destroyed. Why?" Vane's eyes flashed. "Because she is insufferable. Hardly a motive for murder." Poirot's voice dropped. "Because she refused you." A silence. Lady Bellamy stiffened. "What?" Poirot's gaze remained steady. Monsieur Vane came often to Bellamy Grange in past seasons. He admired Madame's charm, her influence. But Madame did not return his admiration, and Mr. Lark discovered this, perhaps discovered letters, perhaps invented them. He blackmailed Monsieur. Vane's laugh cracked. "Ridiculous." Poirot continued, relentless but polite. Mr. Lark promised you the star if you helped him ruin Lady Bellamy. Or perhaps you promised yourself the star once Lark was dead. So you planned. You took the pistol earlier. You cut the telephone. You shot Lark cleanly without struggle because he trusted you as men trust charming writers. Vane's face was pale now. Poirot's voice softened. Then you placed the jewel in Madame's bag. You used her letter opener to stab the secretary when she knew too much, and you set fire to destroy the pistol. Always, you pointed toward Lady Bellamy. Inspector Shaw's eyes narrowed. And Celia named him. Poirot nodded. Because she saw him, the hand in the dark. Vane's voice rose suddenly, sharp. You have no right. Poirot's eyes were sorrowful. Monsieur Vane, the little grey cells do not require rights. They require only truth. For a moment, Vane stood very still. Then, with a sudden movement, his hand darted toward his pocket. Shaw lunged, gripping his wrist. The penknife fell, clattering. Vane's mask shattered. His voice was low, venomous. You think you are so clever, Poirot. Poirot's voice was quiet. Not clever, monsieur. Only attentive. Inspector Shaw hauled Vane back. It's over. But Poirot's eyes remained fixed on Vane's face, as though reading the last lines of a script. No, Poirot murmured. Not yet. The final confession is still to come. Rupert Vane sat very still, held between Inspector Shaw's iron grip and the weight of the room's silence. The charm had drained from him, leaving only bitterness and something dangerously close to despair. Poirot regarded him with the quiet patience of a man who knows that truth cannot be rushed, only permitted. Inspector Shaw's voice was rough with triumph. We've got him. Attempted escape. Weapon in pocket. Poirot lifted a hand gently. Inspector, please. Do not steal the finale from Monsieur. He has written it too carefully. Vane's lips curled. Finale? You make it sound like theatre. Poirot's eyes softened. For you, monsieur, everything has been theatre. Even murder. Lady Bellamy stood rigid, her face pale but composed now, as though humiliation had burned itself out, leaving only cold anger. Rupert, why? Vane's laugh was low. Why? Because you never saw me? You saw only your husband, your house, your precious reputation. And Gideon saw an opportunity. Poirot nodded. Ah, Gideon Lark, the man who believed himself untouchable. Vane's eyes flashed. He threatened me. He said he had letters, that he would ruin me unless I helped him. He wanted the star sold back to Clarissa? Yes, but he wanted more. He wanted her shame. Poirot murmured. And you decided the simplest solution was to silence him? Vane's voice sharpened. He deserved it. He toyed with people like ornaments. Poirot's tone remained gentle but firm. So you took the pistol from Sir Alister's cabinet days before, knowing no one checked. You cut the telephone line to trap us. You waited until dinner, when the house was full of witnesses and confusion. You asked Gideon to meet you in the library. He trusted the charming playwright. Then you shot him. Vane's jaw tightened. He did not deny it. Poirot continued, his voice soft as a confession itself. But murder alone was not enough. You wished Lady Bellamy ruined, so suspicion would fall on her, and you could walk away with the star. You slipped it into her clutch through a cut lining. You used her letter opener to wound Celia when she discovered too much. You broke windows to suggest escape. And when we began to read Gideon's papers, you set fire to destroy the pistol. Inspector Shaw muttered. Cold-blooded devil. Poirot shook his head slightly. Not cold-blooded, Inspector, hot-blooded. Pride, fear, resentment. Those are always warmer than logic. Vane's shoulders sagged. Celia wasn't meant to live. She saw me. She whispered my name. Everything fell apart. Dr. Faraday spoke quietly from beside the sofa. She will live. The wound was cruel, but not fatal. Poirot's eyes closed briefly, as though in relief. "Merci, Doctor." Lady Bellamy's voice was low. "And the letters? The ones Shaw read?" Vane's laugh was bitter. Real enough. Gideon forced her to write. Little pleas, little answers. He wanted a paper chain around her neck. I only used what he provided. Poirot nodded. So even in death, Gideon Lark's vanity poisoned others. Sir Alister stepped forward, his face strained with grief and fury. "You set my wife up. You nearly killed her secretary. You burned my study, all for a jewel and wounded pride." Vane's eyes glittered. "You think you are innocent. You were drowning in debt. Gideon knew. Clarissa knew. Everyone knew something." Poirot's voice was soft, almost sorrowful. "Yes, everyone knew something. That is why the circle was closed so tightly. Secrets are the locks we place on ourselves." Inspector Shaw hauled Vane upright. "You'll confess formally at the station once we can get a line repaired." Vane's laugh was hollow. "Station, court, headlines, another drama. Perhaps I shall finally be remembered." Poirot's eyes met his. "Monsieur, you will be remembered only as a man who wasted his gifts on destruction." Vane's expression flickered. Pain, then hardness. "Spare me your philosophy." Poirot inclined his head. As you wish." The house had grown strangely quiet. The fog outside was thinning now, as though dawn approached reluctantly. Servants moved like shadows, exhausted. Celia lay back, eyes closed, alive. Lady Bellamy sank into a chair, her hands clasped. "Poirot, you saved me from disgrace as well as death." Poirot's voice was gentle. "Madame, disgrace is sometimes deserved, sometimes manufactured. Tonight it was manufactured." Sir Alister's voice was thick. "And Gideon?" Poirot sighed softly. Gideon Lark believed himself the master of other lives. He collected jewels, yes, but also weaknesses. Such men create their own murderers. Inspector Shaw grunted. "Still murder." Poirot nodded. "Always murder. Always tragedy." Graves opened the door suddenly, a gust of cold air entering. "Inspector, a man from the village has arrived. The line is being repaired. Help is coming." Shaw exhaled sharply. "Good. This nightmare ends." Poirot looked toward the window where the first grey hint of morning pressed through the fog. His mustache twitched thoughtfully. "Hastings," he said softly. "Do you see? The perfect evening was never perfect. Perfection is an illusion the rich enjoy. Underneath, the human heart is always disorderly." I swallowed, still shaken. "And yet you found the truth." Poirot smiled faintly. Truth is only order restored. Inspector Shaw led Rupert Vane away, his footsteps heavy, final. Lady Bellamy covered her face with one trembling hand. Sir Alister stood beside her, not touching, but present. Poirot adjusted his cuffs, immaculate even now. He turned toward the door with his usual composure. "As always," he murmured, "it is not the jewel that matters most, but the soul that covets it." And with that quiet remark, Hercule Poirot departed Bellamy Grange, leaving behind ashes, secrets, and the bitter lesson that even the most perfect evening can end in murder.